In 1963, in a quiet town in central Turkey, a man was renovating his home. He swung a hammer at a wall in his basement, and the wall gave way. Behind it was not damp earth, but a passage that led down, and down, and down again. What he had broken into was not a cellar, it was a city, carved entirely out of solid rock, descending, by the most commonly cited figures, as much as 85 meters into the ground. A city that, when it was full, may have sheltered 20,000 people. Their animals, their food, their dead. You've probably heard this story before. It has been told 100 times, but almost no one stops to ask the questions that matter. Who built it? How deep does it really go? And why would 20,000 people choose to live beneath the earth? This is Derinkuyu. Let's begin with the numbers, because the numbers are where most retellings go wrong. You will hear again and again that Derinkuyu is 85 meters deep, with 18 levels. That figure is repeated everywhere, but it's worth being precise. 85 meters and 18 levels is the commonly cited claim. What has actually been documented and open to the public is closer to 60 meters, across roughly 8 accessible levels, already deep enough to bury a 20-story building. We're going to do something most of these videos don't: separate what is claimed from what is known. Because the truth of Derinkuyu is strange enough without exaggeration. To understand Derinkuyu, you first have to understand the ground it was cut from. Millions of years ago, the volcanoes of central Anatolia, among them the peaks now called Erciyes and Hasan, erupted again and again, blanketing the region in ash. Over time, that ash compressed into a soft, pale rock called tuff. Tuff is unlike almost any other stone. When freshly exposed, it is soft enough to be carved with simple hand tools, a pick, a chisel, patience. But once it meets the open air, it slowly hardens, sealing itself into a durable shell. This is the quiet miracle at the heart of the story. A harder rock, and the city would have been impossible to dig. A softer one, and it would have collapsed under its own weight. Cappadocia sits in the narrow band between the two. The people who came here did not conquer the landscape. They read it, and then, layer by layer, they began to disappear into it. And here we reach the first true mystery, the one most retellings quietly skip. Because the honest answer to who built Derinkuyu is, we don't fully know. The most widely cited hypothesis points to the Phrygians, an Iron Age people who, according to some archaeologists, may have begun the earliest excavations as far back as the 8th or 7th century before the Common Era. Others have suggested an even older origin, reaching back to the Hittites. But the evidence is thin, and the dating remains genuinely debated. What is clearer is what came later. In the early centuries of the Common Era, Christian communities expanded the site dramatically, deepening it, widening it, adding chapels and chambers, until a modest refuge became the vast underground city we see today. So Derinkuyu is not the work of a single people, or a single moment. It is a palimpsest, carved, abandoned, rediscovered and carved again, across what may be 1,000 years or more. Each generation inherited the darkness of the last and dug a little deeper. No inscription names its founders. No record marks its beginning. The city keeps that secret, as well as it kept its people. Whatever its true depth, around 60 meters confirmed, perhaps more claimed, Derinkuyu was not a cave. It was a machine. Consider the problem. To shelter thousands of people far below the surface, even for a few days, you face two enemies no amount of stone can defeat: bad air and thirst. Derinkuyu answers. answered both. Throughout the city run more than 50 ventilation shafts, narrow vertical channels bored from the surface down through every level, circulating fresh air into the deepest chambers. The largest plunges around 55 meters, and it served a second purpose. At its base lay water. The shaft was also a well, drawing from an underground source the enemy above could never reach, or poison. Air from above, water from below. Between them, levels stacked upon level, linked by steep, narrow passages, easy to defend, almost impossible to storm. It's tempting to picture this as primitive. It was anything but. This was a deliberate, engineered system, built by people who understood airflow, water tables, and the geometry of survival, centuries before any of it had a name. And the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. Derinkuyu was not dug in fear and haste, it was planned. Nothing makes that planning more vivid than the doors. Set at key points throughout the city are great circular slabs of stone, like millstones stood on edge. Each measures perhaps 1 meter to 1.5 meters across, and weighs on the order of half a ton. But it is the design that tells the story. These doors could only be moved from the inside. Rolled across a passage and locked into place, a single door sealed an entire level shut. And in the center of each was a small round hole, just wide enough to see through, or to thrust a spear through at anyone trying to break in. This is the detail that changes everything. A cellar protects you from weather. A door that only locks from within protects you from people. Derinkuyu was not built to keep out the cold. It was built to keep out men who were coming to kill you. So who lived down here, and how? At its fullest, Derinkuyu may have held something approaching 20,000 people, together with their livestock and their stores. And the city was organized with a logic that still impresses. The upper levels held the stables. It seems backwards to keep animals near the entrance, until you remember the air. Livestock breathe heavily and foul the air quickly. Keeping them high, near the shafts, protected the people below. Descend further, and the city becomes a community. There are kitchens, their ceilings still blackened with smoke, storage rooms for grain and oil, presses for making wine, and deeper still, carved into the rock, a church, and by some accounts, spaces that may have served as a school. People were born in this darkness. They worshipped here. They pressed their wine and buried their dead here. For weeks at a time, an entire society lived its ordinary life with the weight of the world quite literally above its head. We imagine the underground as a place of last resort, somewhere you flee to and endure. Derinkuyu was something stranger. It was a place where life simply continued by lamplight in the dark. Which brings us to the question beneath all the others. Why? Why build downward on this scale, at this cost? The answer, as far as we can reconstruct it, is survival. For long stretches of its history, this region sat on a fault line of empires, a borderland fought over for centuries. During the Arab-Byzantine wars, roughly between the 7th and 10th centuries, raiding armies swept across Anatolia again and again. For the villages above, an approaching army was not a battle to be won. It was a death to be avoided. And so, they vanished. At the warning of a raid, an entire community could descend into the earth, roll the great stone doors shut behind them, and wait, sealed in, breathing through the shafts, drinking from the well, until the danger passed and the world above fell silent again. Derinkuyu, then, is not really a city in the way we use the word. It is a held breath, a place a whole people could disappear into and survive what was coming. The surface belonged to whoever was strongest. the depths belonged to those who knew how to hide. And Derinkuyu did not stand alone. Across Cappadocia lie dozens of underground settlements, a whole landscape hollowed out beneath the fields. The nearest great one is Kaymaklı, and according to local tradition, the two were once linked by a tunnel running some 9 kilometers underground. It's a remarkable claim, and an honest account has to treat it as exactly that. A claim reported and repeated, but never firmly verified. Yet whether or not that single tunnel truly connected them, the larger truth holds. This was not one hidden city. It was a network, an entire civilization that, when it needed to, could fold itself into the ground and slip away. Above, the plains of Anatolia look empty. Below them, history is still holding its breath. For all its scale, Derinkuyu did not last forever. The underground cities were used, on and off, for well over 1,000 years. As late as the early 20th century, the Greek-speaking Christians of Cappadocia are said to have sheltered in them during times of persecution, until 1923, when they left this land for good in the Great Population Exchange. After that, the city was emptied and slowly forgotten. The entrances closed over, the shafts filled with dust. The town above went on living, unaware of the world directly beneath its feet, until 1963 and a hammer and a wall that gave way. Today, a fraction of Derinkuyu is lit and open to visitors, but only a fraction. Archaeologists believe much of it remains unexcavated, sealed passages, lower levels, tunnels that simply end in rock and rumour. So return for a moment to where we began. How deep does it truly go? Who first struck a pick into this stone and why? And how many more of these cities are still down there, waiting beneath the quiet fields of Cappadocia? The city gave up its secret in 1963. Everything else, it is still keeping. This was Derinkuyu, the city beneath the stone.